Look, it's like this. I'm sick. I don't feel well. And I was like, I need to do this review. I don't feel like showering up. I'll just wear the beanie. Because without the beanie, I look like this. Shit is unacceptable. Point is, it'll feel weird at first, but we'll get through it. Maybe down the road I'll be like, oh man, I should have just showered and gotten all ready for that review. But right now, I don't give a fuck. So I'm gonna do it like this. Pretty on brand. I feel like I should be in the Pet Cemetery. Let's review it. Pet Cemetery. Hurting cats is not just a phrase, by the way. You realize with this thumbnail, I'm gonna get all the cat people now they're much more needy than dog people. They're needy and they act like they're not needy. He's a pretty cat though. God, you look like a model. Like you're like Pet Cemetery. You don't look scraggly at all. You should. This is Ramsey. And he's a really sweet cat who wants the fuck out of here. Okay. All right. So Pet Sematary is the newest movie by Stephen King. Sorry, Ramsey. So Pet Sematary is the newest movie based on a Stephen King novel, which we're hitting a pretty good stride now. We're 2 for 2 if we're looking at the new wave of Stephen King movies. We had It. We have Pet Sematary now. There's cat hair floating everywhere. If there's cat hair on me in this review, whatever. Pet Sematary stars Jason Clarke. He's the father and husband of this family. They moved to this house in the middle of nowhere in a small town, you know, pretty Stephen King-ish. And in the woods behind this house, there's a cemetery where people apparently bury their pets, which I just learned cemetery is totally misspelled in this movie, in this book, in this story. Just realized that. Hey. That's a lot of years to not notice that. Point is, it may or may not involve a cat that gets brought back to life, and now we have zombie creepy cat, and there's more to it as the story unfolds because Stephen King. That's what I like about this movie. It's what I like about it. It's what I like about Stephen King stories. When you watch them, they're distinctly Stephen King stories. There aren't other horror stories that really feel like that. Other horror stories may have actually taken beats from Stephen King. And most other people, if they were to make a story like this, I'd be like, it feels a little convoluted. There are a lot of storylines that weave together. I don't know if it weaves together smoothly. Stephen King, generally speaking, makes it work. It's the people who adapt it to movies. That's where it fucks up. All right, in some of his books, maybe it doesn't work either. But the guy hasn't made a name for himself for that not working. That's what I noticed in here. In here, it just feels distinctly like Stephen King. It's not really about one cat. It's not really about other things that may or may not happen. It's really the story of this family and the people in it. And horror things are built around them, and that's what makes this good. I will say I kind of crave a few more answers as to how deep it goes, and maybe that was explained in the book, maybe it wasn't. I would say it's there to keep the intrigue alive, but a couple more questions, if they were answered, would still keep the intrigue alive. Just want to know a couple more things. And everyone in here was actually a really good job. Jason Clarke is great. I mean, Jason Clarke is great. Jason Clarke's one of those actors, like, you know his name, you might know him as that guy, but you know he's good. John Lithgow needs no introduction. There is a point in this movie where the little girl, there's a lot asked of her. She does it right for herself. She's not the little kid from Looper, who I feel like is like the metric, because that kid in Looper was really good. The movie does feel a bit short in parts. By short, I mean, I feel like things were cut out. I mean, there could be a lot more lore explained in here, like I mentioned earlier. There could be a lot more that happens. The creep factor could build up before, all right, here's more of what's happening. You can have more creepiness. You can have more cat. I feel like that's all I have to say. Cat. Creepy, right? But as it stands, it's like, all right, creep factor, a little more happening, and Stephen King. Pretty to the point. I suppose that's why it's hard to adapt Stephen King stories to the big screen unless you split it up into 2 halves. Like it. I mean, come on. We drudged through there was a lifetime in which Stephen King adaptations were happening that were coming to the big screen or the small screen, and they were not that good. Stop with that Shawshank Redemption shit. All right, I know that's great. That's an exception. It's not the rule. This movie has solid acting, a solid lead. It has good creep factor, though I could have had the creepiness build a bit longer. It has good intrigue, though I could have delved into the lore a bit more. So I had a few wants walking out of the movie, but in the end, I walked out going, that was more enjoyable than a lot of horror movies that happen these days. So as I said before, horror movies should be telling the story of the characters in them, and horror things are built around it. And horror elements start invading the family dynamic, the home. They start invading the people's personal lives. This movie does that. The story does that. It's not just scare, because there were a couple of jump scares, but it was just at the beginning, and then you kind of calm down after that. And there was an It Easter egg. Did you see it? On the road, side of the road, the sign. It's there. In the end, I will say Pet Sematary is a good time. No alcohol required. I almost coughed through that. Alright, so Pet Sematary, have you seen it? What did you think about it? What's your favorite Stephen King movie from a book adaptation? I think I asked that in every Stephen King movie that's based off of a book. But I'm going to ask it again because, like I said, I'm sick and I feel like shit. I'm going to end this now. Whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.